Well, thank you so much for the kind introduction. I'm very glad to be here. This is one of my first lectures about what we're going to experience about the overview of clinical research in oncology in Malaysia. I'm very passionate about this because the first clinical research that I brought many years ago, back in 2002, 2003, was EGFR TKI inhibitors. And at that time, there was only this and monoclonal antibody, which is Herceptin. And we bring this clinical research, and the fact that the doctor says that, thank you very much for bringing this clinical research to help patients to extend their treatment. I have no conflict of interest, except for I was working for biopharma industry before. That was more than 10 years ago. And my other disclaimers, I'm bringing more clinical research, sponsor research, without any conflict of interest, with one thing in mind: humanity. Bringing clinical research that matters to the people in Malaysia, to the doctors, so that we can address their unmet needs, especially for those patients who has already exhausted the standard therapy. And what's next is clinical research. This is my disclaimer. I like to show this because this was from Clinical Research Trial, Clinical Research Malaysia Trial Connect last month in the early May. It was launched by the Prime Minister. This is the first meeting of clinical research network that is launched by a Prime Minister. It is one of the largest participants in the region, 1,000 participants. The Mimala was there as well, and Prof. Chong. And it is, what do you call that, largest in terms of the numbers, and also a lot of networks build up from there, whether it's a sponsored research or what do you call that, investigator-initiated trials. So next year, please come and join us. When I come to this slide, the first thing I remember was what Prime Minister alluded. Akhmal, we need to bring clinical research to Malaysia to address in terms of the advancements for patients to be having that access, not only in urban, suburban, or even rural, but not only Malaysia, but ASEAN and probably Asia. So that's a big, what you call, responsibility. But when I look at what has developed, remember I talked to you about the EGFR TKI mutation, EGFR TKI as the first compound that I brought in terms of clinical research. Now there are more. There are hundreds more of new compound entity, and the fact that it is available because of the research that has been done in this area. And if you look at this, 41% of the global clinical trials that were initiated in 2024 is actually oncology. And they varies from those days. We only talk about the kinase pathway. Now we have, in terms of protein degraders, ADCs, antibody drug conjugates, multispecific antibodies, cell gene therapies, radioligand, and this new mechanism of actions will be change the color of the way how the future doctors, oncologists treat patients. Now let me go deep dive in terms of this trend. If you look at the novel therapy, these are, I'd like you to focus on this table here. If you look at this table, 35% of the global clinical research now is actually focusing on cell gene, multispecific antibody drug conjugate. Back in 2015, not far ago, we talked about PD-L1, PD-1 inhibitors. They were the biggest highly researched compound, not only in one oncology area, therapeutic area like lung cancer, but others as well, breast and so on. So what happens? And if you look at these cell gene therapy, ADC and multi-specific antibodies, when I said a third, 32% of it is in solid tumor, and the other 43% are in hematological cancer. The PD-1 and PD-L1, which was once the lead, now is declining in terms of the trial numbers. I'm not quite sure why it is, but I think you can find the answers if you go to ChatGPT and so on. I know it's very, what you call unscientific, but there is a reason for that. I don't want to go deep into it. But I just like to mention these radioligand trials. This is a very interesting. In the past, you see that the radioligand trials are very small in number. Now, in the past 5 years, it has a triple compounding effect in terms of the number of trials that is going on. So this gives us a little bit of picture that there is a new kid on the block. Now, let's go through it deep inside the ADCs. I think you all probably know from the lectures in the past, ADC is a new way in terms of reviving chemotherapy. In the past, when the target therapy has come in, chemotherapy has been seen a bit lagging behind in terms of the treatment for specific cancer. But now there is a new modality in terms of bringing the clinical, the chemotherapy to the direct target cells itself. And this is with the help of the antibody drug conjugates, which actually consists of monoclonal antibody coupled with the cytotoxic agent and target to the cancer cells. In a way, it's like a targeted chemotherapy. So in a way, if you look at this type of treatment, it's like helping the chemotherapy to act directly to the targeted cells. Now, in terms of multi-specific antibody trials, it has grown significantly, where 17% of it is in hemato-oncology trials and 11% in solid tumor trials in 2024. By the way, all this data you can download freely from IQVIA report, which is the biggest contract research organization in the world. Radioligand trials. This is the reason why I say that they may be the new kids on the block. This is about getting the radionuclear and the radio therapy itself combined together and send it to the cancer cells. And what amazing features that it has grown 5 times more in the past 5 years. Just look at that in 10 years ago. And this will mean that it will be helpful in terms of certain cancers like prostate cancer and cancer that is very difficult to penetrate like neuroendocrine cancer. So it might give some good news to cancer that is very difficult to penetrate like head and neck cancer. So just stay on with the picture and it might be something new in the future. So let's go back to the ground where we are in Malaysia. We have conducted clinical research in 2012 as a company that belongs to the Ministry of Health as a site management organization. We were we were born in 2012, but since 2012 till now, we have conducted, or Malaysia has conducted, more than 2,500 clinical research, and 30% of that are oncology. And if you do your maths, that's a huge number. And looking at this, hemato-oncology, is one of the biggest number of clinical research that come to Malaysia. So when we look at this, in terms of oncology alone, it has been growing steadily. And steadily means that the number is growing year on year. Last year alone, we have nearly 120 numbers of new clinical research that comes in, not only in the public sector, where CRM is hugely responsible in terms of managing the sites, but also in the academia, and guess what? In the private sector. So looking at this, every sector in Malaysia's health is playing a great role in terms of clinical research, in particularly oncology. Why? Because the number of sites of clinical research is growing, and in this graph, it shows that there are centers that are doing clinical research in the academia, in the private sector, and in the public sector. This is important because it clearly tells us where are the patient journey. And this is what sponsors like. When we talk about patient who has already failed first-line therapy, they go to the public sector. For those who has failed second-line therapy, in the academia. And those who fail second line and going to the third line, that's where the private play a role. And this is clearly shown in this table. If you look at the number of clinical research, of course, it is being conducted in a huge number of public sector, which includes of the academia. The highest number of sponsored research that lands in Malaysia is actually in the University Malaya Medical Center. Second is Sarawak General. Of course, it followed by Penang and so on. But I'd like to also show that Pantai Hospital is the highest number in terms of the private sector. And looking at that, secondly by Beacon, which is 100% focusing on oncology. So the rest, if you want to snap the photo, you're most welcome. And it means that clinical research, as I showed earlier in the slides earlier, that it is available in all three sectors. Now the question is how we want to make sure that the public knows it. Because in Australia, the number of population is also similar like Malaysia, 33 million. But the number of patients that enroll in clinical research is 10 times more than what we do in Malaysia. So I think there must be something that we can do working with this conference like National Cancer Society of Malaysia and other organizations like the Pink Unity. Probably we can bring more patients to understand about clinical research and perhaps join the clinical research in future. So what are the types of clinical trials that we conduct in Malaysia? A lot of them is non-small cell lung cancer and small cell lung cancer. Majority are non-small cell lung cancer, and that's why lung cancer is the biggest number of oncology trials that landed in Malaysia from 2019 to 2024. And second is breast cancer. Hematology cancer is the next. So colorectal is another one that is growing. And these are some of the pedigree of doctors that does well. It is a mixture of other therapeutic areas. What I want to just focus here is that if you take a look at this Asia Pacific first recruiter under Hostel Pulau Pinang and Kuala Lumpur. I never know that we can recruit melanoma in Malaysia. That's amazing. So that means there is chance for doing some rare cancer in Malaysia. The rest, like non-small cell lung cancer and colorectal cancer, are one of the top. Now, let me share with you the biggest task that I had. What are the types of oncology trials that we received since in 2024? If you look at the mechanism of the actions of oncology, you name it, things that has been just developed in the world, we have it in Malaysia. It's amazing. We even have some which is the first in class, Werner helicase inhibitor. In the past, we have a tri-complex KRAS mutation as the first in human trials in Malaysia. And that has done wonder because it put Malaysia in the map of the world in terms of clinical research. It was presented in the AACR as an abstract. But what happens next is that there are more new compounds coming in, even before registration. Yeah? So what is the Werner helicase inhibitor? It's a new drugs targeted DNA repair enzyme with partial response in patients and disease stabilization in 65.7%. Still early news. This doesn't mean that this can be what we call as a blockbuster in future. I remember back in 2023, 2003, where the EGFR that I was working on will be the blockbuster. You never know. There's a lot of things that happens. You need to understand about the mutation and so on. Okay, enough of that. So out of 25 new compound entity that was approved in US and EU in 2024, 8 has done clinical research in Malaysia. This includes of patients in lung cancer, gastric cancer, and also breast cancer. These are lazertinib, tarlatamab, and then the zolbetuximab, and the rest. These are trials involve patients around 130 in Malaysia, and some trials in Malaysia are for different indications, which are solid tumors. So Malaysia has been seen as a center for sponsored research, but also for oncology study. And that's because of the enthusiasm of our doctors, oncologists, who are inclined to do this study. Without them, we are also having a lot of challenges in doing this. But we also need to understand that behind all this great study, there are great study coordinators that works hand in hand with the investigator to make sure that the study are being conducted with good protocol commitment and also no protocol deviation. And this will help us even better in terms of delivering clinical research with speed, reliability, and quality. So that's the reason why we have more studies that comes to us. The speed itself, we used to be a country that need 350 days to conduct clinical research to start with, back in 2015. Now it takes around 90 days, all because we have streamlined in terms of the legal process, finance, budget development, and also the important thing is to provide the study coordinators. And because of that, we create a new value proposition to deliver clinical research with speed, reliability, and quality. And that's why we get more studies to come into the country. So this is my last slide. I think the opportunity for future landscape, we have 2 centers for first in human. I think we are good at it. And last year we did 5 first in human study. And I'm glad to say that Sarawak and Ampang is doing a fantastic job in doing first in human. There are other centers that is going to open up soon. Sunway is one of them, and the other one will be UMMC. Now, looking at it, radioligand, watch that space. I think for those who are doing tumor that is very difficult to penetrate, please work with your radionuclide team and have that common multidiscipline team, because that will be a very important multidiscipline team in future. We will be having a lot more of that. ADC and multi-specific antibodies, I think there's a lot of room to develop. It is being seen to be the blockbuster in future, and being blockbuster is going to be expensive. So maybe you need to also to think and work with NCCM to find a good way in terms of financing this type of treatment. Incidence of mutation, I think God knows. When I was 20 years ago, we only know 1. Now there are hundreds of them. There will be more. Last but not least, we need to have a good collaborative network. One of it is NCSM. Thank you very much for your kind attention. I wish you all the best.